Hello, wie geht's? My guests today are from the European startup hotspot and an art and technology mecca, the city of Berlin. To make things more interesting, they run a unique startup ecosystem unlike any of its kind. So Factory Berlin is a co-working space, an incubator, and a large network of entrepreneurs, creators, and experts. And it is my great pleasure and great curiosity to learn more about Factory Berlin today from the senior program director, Šarlot Huk, and the Factory Berlin CEO, Martin Eyrer, who will join us a bit later. So, dear Šarlot, thank you for joining Raising Talks sessions.
Thank you for having me.
I want to tell you a little bit about our program, just like an intro. So Raising Talks is within Raising Starts program that helps early stage startups. And it's being organized by the Science and Technology Park in Belgrade with the help of Government of Switzerland. And I would like to introduce myself too. I'm Katarina Popovic. I used to be a startup founder. Now I run Pitch Consultancy. I'm a pitch and public speaking coach. And I'm also a media artist. I use storytelling and technology in my work under name Catworks. So this conversation is very, uniquely special for me too. And in front of the team of Science and Technology Park, I will be moderating the conversation. So let's start. I have read a lot about the unique programs that Factory Berlin runs. And could you give us a little overview? And I am informed that you run a very special program too. So maybe we can talk about that too.
Sure. As you just heard, I am our senior program manager. So I'm responsible for the strategy and oversight of our programs. We have two different types of programs at Factory Berlin. So we have our engagement programs, which focus on bringing our members together within the community. We have a lot of cool stuff happening there. And we also have our empowerment programs, which focus on, bringing in new people that maybe on first sight didn't know that Factory Berlin was the community for them. So Factory Berlin is historically a tech community. And the tech ecosystem is really lacking in female entrepreneurs. Actually, in Germany, only 15% of entrepreneurs are women. At Factory Berlin, our vision is to give every creator an empowering network. And when we say every creator, we really do mean every creator. So it's really important to bring women into entrepreneurship. And that's why we have our Stealth Mode program. Stealth Mode is a 3-month program, which provides our founders with mentorship, network, expertise, and visibility so that they're able to take their startups from MVP to investment. And there's a lot of different things that make it unique. I think the most exciting thing about it is the network that's attached to it. We have really cool people from the Berlin and Hamburg startup scene working with us, and they really bring a willingness to support the founders further and to give them all the feedback that they need to grow. And we've actually had 9 of our alumni successfully raise fundraising. So we've had over 3 million in investment raised by the alumni of that program.
That is really interesting to have a unique program for female and non-binary. I was wondering, how long is it running already?
It is. So we have run 4 programs already. We'll be running our 5th program next year in January.
Great. This is good news for also female entrepreneurs here in Serbia. We also in Science and Technology Park like to point out that those opportunities specifically for female and non-binary entrepreneurs. So I'm glad to hear about Stealth Mode. Great work.
Great. Thank you.
Could you tell us also a little bit about the industries that are in high demand in Germany? And there are those industries that are, they can more easily raise funds. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the interesting things about Factory Berlin is because we're a community that's always growing and changing, you can kind of see the trends of industries within who's represented at Factory Berlin. So historically, there's a lot of interest in blockchain, mobility and logistics, sustainability and future of work. And you see those competencies in our community. And we also have growing interest in health tech, for example. Health tech is a really booming industry in Germany, fintech, and of course now Web3.
And what about the stealth program? Is there like a silver lining that connects? Is there a theme, or like where are the interests of female and non-binary founders?
Yeah, great question. And so it is a little bit. You do see those interests within stealth mode. So actually, stealth mode, a little bit less than 20% of our applications were health tech startups, which is really interesting. I think women are really leading the frontier there, and they have a lot of really like great insights to add to the health tech industry, especially to make it more accessible and supportive of women and minorities. So really cool. And we also see a lot of applicants in consumer retail. And consumer retail is something we have. Consumer retail is something that's really, there's a lot of, again, representation of underrepresented minorities working in consumer retail to make those products applicable and useful for people. For example, so that you can have makeup that matches your skin tone and things like this. It's so basic. It's crazy that this is still a problem, but there's a lot of innovation happening there through our founders, for example.
Yeah, these are great opportunities that, seem like we overcame them, but we haven't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we here in Science and Technology Park and at Raising Starts program, we have this also interesting group of entrepreneurs, and they would be interested to know how could they apply to Factory Berlin. Is there like a few steps to take? Are there any advice you can give us? Stuff like that.
Yeah, so we are a curated community, so you would have to apply to be a member. Our application is pretty straightforward. You can check us out at factorberlin.com/memberships. So you can see what membership fits you, and then you could submit an application. My advice, so as you just heard, we're industry agnostic. We're really open to a lot of different industries, different people. We're not only a tech industry, we're also a creative and arts industry, as Martin will tell you. And we have freelancers, founders, activists, creatives, artists, corporates, startups, really everyone that you can think of. But what sort of unifies them is that they're all, entrepreneurial, they're ambitious, and especially they're very community driven and are willing to support and empower each other's work. So my recommendation for people when they apply is to put in their best effort in their personal statement and tell us not only what you want to get out of being a member of Factor Berlin, but also what you can give back in return.
That's a great advice, because usually you're focused on, yourself and building your thing, but actually the power is in the community.
Exactly.
I'm interested in one important thing as I'm a pitch coach and a public speaking person. Can startups pitch in English since it's a German language territory? How does that work? Is there a language barrier?
Yeah, there is. We are an international community. So I would say that the vast majority of our community speaks English or German and English. In Berlin, our events are nearly all in English, actually. So majority of pitching opportunities would happen in English. In Hamburg, the events are more oftentimes in German, but our team is speaking English. So there are still opportunities if you reach out to our team, and they'll be able to help you. So yeah, it is the tech. I think the tech scene in Germany is very international. So there is plenty of opportunities in English.
That's very important to know. Would you recommend for teams, if they plan to expand to Germany, to add a person that is German speaking in their team?
Oh, great question. I would say not even only a person that's German speaking. I think it just really helps to build your network on the ground. So I would always recommend people, they either build a local network remotely, however they're able to do that, or they spend some time wherever it is that they're expanding to make the network they need to grow towards that territory.
Basically moved to Berlin for a while.
Basically moved to Berlin. In fact, I really remember exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a very practical thing to do, because when you're there, the connections can happen more easily than like cold emails or LinkedIn, pings and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know that you have been working with a lot of startups. And what is your experience? Could you give us some advice and things that you have noticed that can improve, or things that you've noticed that are great, so we can, transfer that knowledge to our community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if I was to boil my advice down to 3 points, it would be for early stage founders, especially, grow your network from the start. Go to events, go to VC hours, join communities. It's really important to build a network and to meet people almost before you have a purpose for them. Mm-hmm. It's really great to have these long-term relationships so that when you come to fundraising, for example, you've already met some VCs and some of the work is already done for you in advance. So never underestimate the power of a strong network would be my first point. My second point would be to work in iterations. It's so much easier to build off of small successes along the way than it is to kind of push everything towards a bigger final point. It kind of will also give you validation as you're working on your product rather than leaving that until much later. So I always recommend that people work in iterations, that they collect as much feedback as they can as they're doing it. And really take the time essentially to kind of build slowly and steadily. And finally, I would really, I think it goes without saying that to be an entrepreneur, you have to have a lot of resilience and drive. But I would say to everyone to do everything they can to kind of further that attitude within themselves. I can give a great example of a founder that just participated in our last program for Stealth Mode 4.0, Christina. She built her startup with 2 other members from our community, and she's applied to Stealth Mode 4 times and has finally been at the stage to participate in the program, participated in the last program, and successfully raised just under 1 million in investment for her startup, not less but better, at the beginning of this year. So I think it kind of shows that if you keep going, you keep, whether it's, keep going, applying the programs, keep approaching, keep working on your product, keep going. That is always my greatest advice, is to be as resilient as possible along the way.
Great. Thank you. I'm also wondering, I'm always wondering when we talk about female entrepreneurs and non-binary in this case, what are the things that are holding us back, and what can we do to fix them? We probably already noticed the red spots that can be turned to green. So can you give us a little insight into that?
Sure. When you look at the things that hold, first of all, I would say it's not the fault of women or non-binary founders that they are less represented. I think it's sort of the paths towards women and non-binary and underrepresented founders oftentimes follow an untraditional path towards entrepreneurship, let's say. So maybe they don't come up through the universities or something like this. So actually they're jumping in at a later stage once they've seen the problem, maybe once they've come from a different role. Maybe they're a topic expert, but they haven't done the whole business school networking thing. And again, it comes back to this network problem. I think this is one of the big things that holds back people that are women, that are non-binary founders, that are underrepresented founders, is the network that they have.
And about the other programs in the nest of Factory Berlin, could you give us a few words about the other programs that you've mentioned?
Sure. So we have an artist in residence program, which is also one of our empowerment programs. I'm sure Martin will tell you a little bit about it. It's essentially a program for founders that are exploring the intersection of art and technology or society. So they participate with us in a similar fashion of Stealth Mode. So they they get mentorship, expertise, and they also get a lot of visibility from the program. So they're going through a program, they're participating in workshops, they have mentors that come in and give them guidance. And then finally, at the end, they have a vernissage where they present their work to the community. And so this is another program that we run, again, which is about kind of broadening the scope of who we are as a community at Factory Berlin. And then we also have engagement programs, like I said. So engagement programs are towards connecting everyone within our community and giving them opportunities for leadership and autonomy. So we have something called our Circles program. Circles are member-led communities around a particular subtopic or interest. So, for example, we would have a blockchain circle, and that would be run by 2 members. There would be a Slack channel that's dedicated to conversations for the blockchain circle. They would host a monthly meetup on campus where you could connect and casually talk about what's happening in the industry. And then finally, they would have a quarterly event where you could come and you could learn about the big topics, let's say in blockchain. So we have just under, I believe it's 10 active circles now. And so when I'm referencing these industries, I'm referencing oftentimes industries that we have circles in, which is a really great opportunity for people to further their industry knowledge within Factory Berlin.
Yes, this is very versatile. It seems very vibrant. When you get there, there's so many opportunities for you. Dear Martin, thank you for joining us in the Raising Talks, given your busy schedule. So I'm really, really curious to hear about the unique community that Factory Berlin has built. You have such impressive data. So over 4,500 members and over 70 countries and industries across art and technology and creativity, entrepreneurship, all kinds of topics that you cover. How did that happen? How do you do that? That sounds really impressive.
I mean, I personally work for Factory Berlin since 4 years, and Factory was founded 10 years ago by our founder, Udo Schlimmer. And why I work there has the following reason. It came through my neighbor, who is now my co-CEO, Nico Kramens. I founded another company called Riverside Studios in Berlin, and we run 27 studios and run also a community of 65 artists. And I've been in community building since also 10 years. We founded, my partners and myself, 2012 Riverside Studios. Before, while I went to law school when I was young, I started to DJ, and I had a career in music producing, also produced more than 250 records. And when we built the Riverside Studios, we were working on building a community and finding out what can you provide more than just space, and how can you build a community, and what's really the outcome of such a community? Is it just we feel all well, or are there effects for the people who are part of this community? So when I met my neighbor, Nico, we discussed from day one about many topics, because we were driven by a relation we just had. We were sympathetic. We had some barbecues together. And since we're curious people, we started to talk about disruption of music industry, actually. That was interesting for him to learn from, because he worked for Siemens. And we discussed how to transform actually a whole company and look into new work. What does it take to, what do you need to provide so 300,000 employees are innovative or part of a more than just a higher job of an ecosystem? And we started to work for Factory then both 4 years ago, and that's how we came across that. And when I met the founder Udo through an intro from Nico, we felt that we have lots of things in common, because I was looking into community building all the years before, as he did in digital economy, I did in creative economy. So we decided to do something together, and in the first step, simply bring artists and creativity even more to Factory Berlin. And that's actually how it started.
This is very interesting for me too. I'm a media artist and a public speaking coach, but for me, this unique thing that art and creativity can bring to entrepreneurship and technology. What are your findings? How do artists and creative people pretty much, as you said, transform industries?
Mostly when I got introduced as a music producer or DJ, then people obviously say, okay, it's a creative guy. And I always need to tell them, yeah, but I'm a business guy actually, because I found a lot of companies, and creative business thinking is something I can do because I'm in both worlds. And I think today the role of not just creative people, we are all somehow more or less creative, for people who live from creativity, they play more and more essential role in innovation, because if we look into engineering, a lot is taking over more and more by machine learning and all this like pure technological fields, where creativity always played a role. But I believe, or we at Factory believe, the creativity and the role of creative people, of artists, more and more are the innovation part. And if you look into profile these days, because that was your question, a lot of people who are developers of software, who build companies, they are actually really creative people. And more you see the profiles meld together, not in obvious clusters like UX design or UI design. We talk about AR, VR. And then when it comes to really any engineering business, more and more you need the creative people. And that's what we brought to Factory. We called it the Creative Code. We developed in 2018. The team actually did like a great job. I'm always saying I just put a small stone in the water, but the waves, what the team made out of it is really stunning. That we came up with an ethos at Factory, which is implemented in everything we do, which basically says, if we bring together forethinkers, technologists, and artists, this is the key to innovation. From a diverse background, people bringing together, this is what fosters and what drives you always to think in fields you would not alone think at. And since then, we implemented this at Factory.
This is so refreshing to hear. I'm so glad this exists. And I'm glad that the results are showing. You're also one of the rare, let's say, co-working spaces and incubators that has an artist in residency program. That was also interesting for me to learn. And I'm guessing it's the same feedback loop that they give to one another.
Exactly. I mean, first, we used to start as a co-working space, but the value proposition of a co-working space is a different one than we have today. A co-working space provides the best table, maybe in the best location. You can rent it if you need it. That's a great business case, but it's not really what we do, because after only being 1 year, one of the first co-working spaces, the team those days looked into who do we want to have on these desks. So if we start to curate a community of people where there are mutual effects and bringing maybe like-minded people together and coming up with a value set of people we want to see it, which is being open-minded, risk-taking, doers, living certain values, and people who live community values by giving into community, not just taking. This is actually what was the core of becoming what we are today. We are today a network of people which you can use for certain cases, like find my co-founder, learn, get inspired by other people, drive innovation projects, have access to funding, and so further and so further. And the space plays also a role. The space is the second product we have for people to meet and build trust, because trust relations is the core of every network. And the creative people, to come back on that again, are for me, it was the missing part when I came to Factory. It was more, and I think in those days, in 2018, it was like startup corporate innovation, what everyone was talking about. But these days, it's really different. The missing part was the artists within such a community.
That's really interesting to hear.
So that's why an artist in residence program was actually even obvious, I would say.
Right. It sounds like a very logical next step. I'm also interested in this, as you said, that trust is the building stone of every community. And as you might have heard from your colleagues, Raising Starts is also it's an incubator, but it's also a community. So can you give us some advice on how to build strong communities?
First, you need to be aware what kind of community do you want to build, because a community is a wide word and everyone can define this by themselves. We at Factory are a community of people who are doers and maybe found something or whatever. And when you define that, you need to also look into defining what is the framework of people, or what is the framework I want to have people within, define your value set. And then the next step is then to find the first 10, 20, 30 people. And this is the most important step. They are the seeds, the settlers of a community, because good people bring good people. And the better you choose these people, the better people they will bring. And this is what I just can tell everyone, because building communities is exactly that. And if you then manage to build trusted relations with these people, then they identify with the community. We always say, if you share knowledge and experience, leads to a better way of collaborating. And then you identify after building trust with the community. And once you manage that part, I think you did the most important part in building any community. It will actually even grow naturally, because the right people will choose the next right people.
Thank you. This is like a short course. This is very practical. Thank you so much. I'm also interested in one more thing. I'm just very worried about your time. So I'm guessing you're like short in time. So I'm rushing through stuff.
All good.
Since you have such a large community, you have a new space in Hamburg. So you have 2 spaces in Berlin and 1 in Hamburg. So what are the similarities and differences between these communities?
When we decided to open another city, there was a lot of uncertainty if this would work, because we could say, in Berlin, we grew here, we know everyone, the people know us. What can we bring to another city? And we came up with a strategy before that is called Community as a Service, where we took all the learnings in a playbook we took in 10 years running Factory Berlin. We did a lot of mistakes in ecosystem, or its technical word, or community building. And then when we went to Hamburg, it was a big proof of concept for ourselves if the methodology really works, what we always pray about community building. But we use the networks that are in these cities. So of course, every city has different networks. That's why a community is never the same. But the key to a success for everyone, and that's actually the beautiness of networks. I've been asked today in the morning, I had a keynote to master students from France. How do you think about competitors? And I said, first, I don't see competitors, to be honest, not arrogant, but I don't see really competitors. But second, if there were some, it's great, because the network actually has the most value if you find other networks and you connect them. And this is what we did in Hamburg. We went there, we analyzed what clusters are there. It's e-commerce, it's gaming, it's logistics, and a few others. And they have a big benefit from being connected to the clusters in Berlin. And we first built the community, as I told you, by defining the clusters, then talking to the most important 10 people of these clusters, telling them, hey, we do something in Hamburg. Do you want to be part of it? Yes, they wanted. That was the most important thing. And then we started to build an ecosystem and connect it to the Berlin ecosystem. So now if you go to Hamburg, yes, it's different, because Hamburg people have a different mentality than Berlin people. But in our community, the framework, remember, we gave them, it's the same value set. So open-minded people, you can talk to anyone, you always get an answer, and so further. So this is actually the way how we want to scale also our communities, even in other countries and other cities. Now we learned also a lot from the Hamburg process, and we are very confident that the methodology we are using is working, and we always learn more every day, as everyone.
Well, thanks for sharing this. I'm also interested in one more thing, and I can let you go to your next meeting. We have this, like a part of our conversations that we run in every interview, and this is 3 advice from your broad experience that you can give to founders that are maybe planning to come to Germany.
Be open and talk to people. It sounds, the most advice sound very, like, let's say, broad, but sometimes we forget the simple things. It's even in our own community. Even myself, I have to talk to community members, because if you're not doing something and giving in, nothing will come to you. So if you come to Germany or anywhere, talk to people when you're there, learn about them, exchange, share with them. Second advice, think of your network. If I go to another country, I already would think, okay, level 1, who do I know there? Can I call these people and ask, what is important. Do you have any advice? Use the network. Or second level, find something that someone who knows someone, maybe in the network, gives me already a great introduction, because I get kind of an advance in trust, that some people take time and give me time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes for coffee, and this leads to the next thing. Because if you don't have a trusted connection, maybe you know someone who has trusted connections and helps you to find the right like-minded people and get you better, more to the goals you have.
Great. This looks totally different when you talk to a person who's built a community versus just a single entrepreneur. Totally different advice, but this is such much value. So I would like to thank you for taking the time, and also you and Charlotte for taking the time and sharing your expertise with us. For our listeners, wait for more conversations coming up next month. We're still active during the summer, and also please follow our social media links, and Factory Berlin links will be also displayed on the screen.